about it first, and then I will actually show it to you in the Workday tenant, and you will be able to ask questions and make notes. These materials will be available. We have excellent guide out there as well. And, if you have questions, we have whole team here, payroll accounting team working every payroll, trying to make everything perfect. We will be answering those questions. So what is this cost and allocation policy at UMD? What do we require from our workers actively on payroll? Each worker must have a cost and allocation for each position that this worker is paid through on our UMD payroll. That is a cost and allocation that covers worker in a position or worker in a job. At UMD, we have costing specialist roles, and these are the roles that enter costing allocation. If we have an employee who is actively at work, actively on our payroll, the employee must be covered throughout, without gaps, without removing history. So if I have John Smith, who started in November of 2024, and he is ongoing, he doesn't have a terminal contract date, I expect that John Smith will be covered by costing allocations from the first day of him being with the company until he terminates his employment. Why is that? You might think, is the history important? It is, because sometimes we have retro payments that go back, and we want employee to be covered, never replaced by the new costing allocation, actually covered by costing allocation from day one. We strive to have every worker in the worker position level in payroll. Why we're saying that? Worker position level will cover all earnings without exception. So if you have any other earnings that worker gets except for the salary or hourly or any other earning code, if you create worker position cost and allocation, it will cover all of that. So worker position earning level is only required for cost and allocation for earnings that should not follow your base cost and allocation. So just to give you an example, you have someone split between two grants, and then you have an admin increment pay component for that worker that should not be split, but go 100%, let's say, to a grant or users. That's the scenario when you start thinking about worker position earning. We always ask you not to guess what earnings should be there, not to start entering hourly or salary. First of all, quite often you don't know what will be there. And sometimes the worker might get another earning. And if you just create worker position earning cost and allocation, they will not be covered for that earning. Okay? Cost and allocations can extend beyond the current fiscal year. We do not have a policy mandating you to end cost and allocation on June 30th. We don't do that. If you have someone in a position that you don't expect to change, we have excellent date, December 31st, 2099. None of us will be here to witness how that date will expire. But right now you can set it up and forget what those cost and allocations that will not change. When does this apply? If I have a researcher working on a grant, that will not apply, because you know that grants will end and researchers also go from one grant to another. And sometimes they have those multiple splits. But if I hired an admin assistant in a biology department, I don't expect her or his funding to change. So I can safely set them up with December of 2099. Considerations that I would like you to remember those considerations when you actually work on cost and allocations. First of all, when you process change job event, don't feel compelled to update cost and allocation if otherwise it's perfectly valid. If you get to the worker's record, and we'll actually go through a sample like that today, And you see that costing allocation is still the same. It didn't change. And it also covers the next contract extension. Don't feel the need to update it. Just let it go. You don't need to do anything with that. You can submit with the previous costing allocation. You will finish the event and no changes will be posted through. When your worker is transferred or laterally changed to a new position, even if they are under the same costing, this is exactly the situation when the costing record, a new costing record, will be required. Because it's at that point the worker starts their employment in the new position, and the old position's funding will not automatically follow that employee. You will need to enter that. Allocation start dates. We have an alert in the system when you're trying to submit allocation with today's date. Why? Not because we prohibit submitting allocation that will start, let's say, on April 23rd, today. So the nature of Workday, every time you come to a new effective date record, Workday will always provide today's date. And sometimes, because people are so busy with many other details of their job, they create that record and they don't update the start date of the costing allocation from that default today's date to the date where they're supposed to start that. Workday will give you an amber yellow warning, right? So please look at those warnings, because usually when Workday posts a warning, it tries to tell you something. And in this case, it will actually tell you, it looks like you're starting this costing allocation effective today. Is this your intention? If this is your intention and it's just a coincidence, you're okay to submit. It's not a problem at all. But please review those warnings. And trust me, I'm doing so much data entry myself, and I get caught on this as well. Sometimes that warning is what actually saves me from doing the wrong start date. Now, Workday is famous for peppering the page with red warnings, yellow warnings, and red errors. Don't feel that if you get that error, you immediately should back out from the transaction or start changing around items. Sometimes Workday will give you an error and you make your next step, and we'll see it today, and that error will go away. You just need to be consistent in how you treat that page, and you make those errors disappear. Okay. What do we want to do with costing allocation and what we absolutely don't want to happen? So let's walk through that. First, costing allocation for a worker position should start on a higher date, start additional job, or change date, effective date in this position. I validate a lot of costing every week, and I see situations where people start costing allocation, not necessarily on today's date, but arbitrarily maybe last week's date. But if you look at the worker started 2 weeks ago. So if you look at the job summary, you see a date, a start date, that should be the date and position for this worker. Because oftentimes I just correct entries that are short of 3 days, 4 days. The system is unforgiving. If you haven't covered the worker from the first date in a job, it will produce an error, and there will be some kind person fixing that error for you on Saturday. And we all don't want that to happen, right? So when you need to update existing costing allocation, what's the first step you do? You got to the page, you see costing allocation, you need to change it, update it. First thing you do, you change the end date on your current costing allocation. And we'll see it in the tenant. If I want my new costing allocation to start on May 15, first thing I need to do is to end my current costing allocation on May 14. Copy and add. We actually address it on more than one slide in this deck. You use the copy when you are going to leverage some of your work tags in a current costing allocation. And you use add when you enter a new effective date that has nothing to do with work tags in your costing allocation. As previously mentioned, the date of December 31st, 2099 is available for you for all costing allocations that you think are not subject to change. And you know what, even if they change, this date is not going to hurt anyone, because in the future, if that costing allocation changes, the next costing specialist will update that and change the date of 2099 and replace it with something more realistic. As I said already, read the persistent warnings. Yellow warnings will allow you to hit submit, but you want to read them and make sure that you are doing the right thing. And our biggest don'ts, what are the two main reasons while we're working on the weekends cleaning it up? First, people create costing allocation for specific earnings that they shouldn't be doing. So they will hire a student and they create costing allocations for earning code hourly. This is fantastic, but the student is going to get student hourly. So basically, you have no costing allocation. And the other thing is, do not override the current costing. If you see a costing allocation that should be changed, what I see, well, it happens less and less now, but it's actually still happening a lot. People override the dates in the existing costing allocation, then change the work tags around. Sometimes it doesn't quite work well because some details they forget in the new updated costing allocation from the previous one. Then they submit it. And lo and behold, we are in the current payroll. I'm looking at someone's record, and all I see is the future dated allocation starting in May. What about March? What about April? What about current payrolls? I have nothing because someone updated the dates trying to make a change for May payroll. And that's where we're trying to be very kind, and we don't rescind or cancel your changes when we can save the record, which means for every record like that, we look at the history and we try to resurrect what was overridden by you and put that back in. If you see sometimes that we are rescinding costing allocation, we only rescind them in a situation when the costing allocation was not required. It's a repetitive costing allocation with the same distribution, then we would rescind it. But our rule of thumb here, we don't go around canceling your work and making you do it again. We will not do that. We'll try to save the record and make sure that it's acceptable for payroll. One item that I always want to concentrate on is how to use the include existing allocations filter. First of all, why do we have a filter? Right now, we only live and work day for like what, 5 months? But imagine your life and work day for 5 years. If you don't have a filter here, every time you come to this page, the whole history of an employee will be brought in front of you. First of all, you don't need it. And secondly, it takes a lot of system resources. That's why a filter is out there. And that filter, there is a small downside. It always defaults to today's date. So you will see in the tenant, if I go to call someone's costing allocation, it will actually pop up with today's date. What it means is that I won't see all costing that expired before that date. And I might think that this worker doesn't have costing allocations, but they do. So what's the best way? If you are on someone's record and you know that this person has costing allocation, first of all, we always advise you to check first what this worker has, and then you can play with this filter. Because if you need to extend the costing allocation that expired, you need to put that filter at least on the last date of that costing allocation to bring it to screen and to make sure that it appears on your next page and you can work with that. That's why this filter is important. It allows you to see as much as in the system as of the moment you open it. So I got the question here in the chat, I think. Let me see. Okay. In what scenario would someone modify an expired costing record? Oh, I'll tell you right away in what scenario. Let's say you have a student and the student last contract date was April 15. So the contract date is April 15, and let's say pay period ends on April 23rd. That will be one scenario because we actually need to cover our employees up to the end of the pay period contained in the contract end date. The other scenario, I think we all have been students in our past, right? When do students submit time? Is it always when they are supposed to submit time? They usually are late with the time. And if they submit time in the next pay period for the dates they were actively at work, they are not covered for that last pay period and will receive an error. And in this case, what we do, we actually go and extend cost and allocation. The same could be true for the grants. Let's say you set an employee on a grant and a grant is expired, but then, and the cost and allocation date was aligned with the grant expiration. But we all know that award lines are extended. So award line got extended and just in time, you're going to extend cost and allocation. Okay, so just going back to the filter for a second. So if you leave the from date untouched, when you open the page, it will bring to the next page everything that has been active as of that date, which is today, and future dated. So if I have a worker who has 5 cost and allocation, 2 completely expired, 1 current today, and 2 future dated, it will only show me with today's date what's current today and what's future dated. And as I said, if you want to see and modify expired cost and allocation, change your date. How do you know what date it is? Check employee first. You should have access to see costs and allocations before you start modifying them in a standalone process. So HR actions, that's actually 80% or 85% of all our cost and allocation updates. What happens there? The from date will always default to HR action effective date. And when you select worker and position cost and allocation, it will trigger the allocation that employee has in this position appear on your page. So let's say I'm doing change job, the employee is still in the same position. I am routed to this page. And when I click worker and position, I see cost and allocation appearing. And that's where I can judge, is it still good or should I change it? Now, if I do the wrong thing on this start page and I insert worker position and earning, nothing will come up on the page because this level, the worker doesn't have that level of cost and allocation. So you will be working on ground zero and you will not see what the worker actually has. Let me go back to questions. So salary transfers, yes, Erica, it will not automatically create salary transfers ever. Workday is thinking of some functionality to deploy in upcoming year. Might be some tools that will allow us to direct the system when we want salary transfer or not on a post-dated cost and allocation. But right now it's not the case. So if you have a post-dated costing, you have to go and start payroll accounting adjustment if you need. Suggested best practice for HR department. Carlos, this is a great question. So for the cost and allocation, let me first get to Carlos' question because I have another one going on. So for HR department who oversees more than 200 student hourly positions, you can actually, it all depends. What is the majority of your contracts? Is it semester end date? Then you can have semester end date, but please, and that applies to everything. Don't just judge by semester end date or end of fiscal year. Always think about the pay period that contains semester end date and end of fiscal year. Just to give you an example, our first pay period that actually has the end of the fiscal year ends on July 12th. So if you enter June 30th, even though your employer might be just working till June 30th, they are not going to have cost and allocation for the last pay period. Now, 12/31/2099, I wouldn't set the students to that because usually the allocations that ends in 12/31/2099, it tells us they are not going to change. I'd probably align it with the fiscal year end or semester end date, but again, with the pay period containing that, pay period end. Okay. So I will let Jeff answer the chat and I will continue with my presentation. So when you work with hire, additional job, or transfer into a new position, you are working with add function because there is nothing there at the moment. If you need to change cost and location that has been already there, but you just need to create a new effective date, that's where you will first change your end date, and then you will use add or copy function to create your next effective date at range. But always, if you modify cost and location, always start at the end date. First question, this is not what I need right now. It's supposed to end. When is it ending? Let me enter this end date and then work on my new date. Sometimes we need to change employee costing, not attached to any of the HR processes, right? We just have someone in a position, their costing expired, their grant expired, or now we are lending them to another department, 20%, we want to reflect that. So that's where we actually get to the page and start updating it using a separate task access, assign cost and location. You can access that task from Workday search bar, or you can access it from the worker profile. When you access it from the worker profile, then obviously worker and position will be defaulted in your pop-up window. So if you, as already explained, you will use include cost and location filter to see how much of the cost and location you actually want to see on the page. When you select worker using this little pop-up window, the primary position will always get into that filter. But if your employee has more than one job, look carefully. What is the position that you are adjusting? Select that position. Sometimes in very rare situations, if you need to adjust the position from which the worker has terminated, you will select it in the past positions, and I'll show it to you shortly. As I said, always start with ends in the current cost and location 1 day before your next effective date, and use copy or add functions to create a new cost and location record. And then the operation itself is quite easy. We have a great cost and location guide that will provide a link, but mostly what you do, you line up your dates and you select your sources or grants and your distribution. One very important announcement, because that has been a problem too. If you modify a cost and allocation, either you modify what's out there because it was wrong, or you end your current cost and allocation and create the new effective dated record, be very careful with your driver work tags. First of all, what are the driver work tags? We have two that we use. We also have project, but we almost don't use it. It's either grant or source. The moment you enter your grant or source, you are actually going to get all the related work tags on the page. But what I've seen happening, people modify costs and locations, and this is not designed to be a cost share, but they have a cost and location with a grant, and they will just plug a source into that same cost and location line, or the other way around. They have cost and location with a source, and then they would add a grant and they would get a related restricted fund. And now we have a transaction that we need to guess what was supposed to be there. Was it supposed to be a cost share that went wrong, or was it just an earnest mistake? So the start date of your cost and allocation date range, as I previously said, defaults to today, but always check that, because when you modify, whether you modify or add, you will get the new record always appearing with today's date, and a Workday will throw an error or a warning, if that overlaps with the previous costing allocation, line up your dates. Make sure, you know how in the subway and in Europe they say mind the gap, in Britain, mind the gap, right? There shouldn't be a gap between your previous costing allocation and your current one. I get errors sometimes and I see that the users were doing amazing job. They did everything right, except they have a gap of 1 day, and that gap created issue in payroll. And remember, we don't exclude Saturdays or Sundays, continuous coverage. That's what we need, and we ask you to do that. So first of all, how to review costing allocations? What do you need to do before you start working on them? You want to see what's out there in the worker's record. So you actually want to access a worker profile, and you have to select correct position for workers in multiple jobs. And then you will see pay costing allocations. You can actually see costing allocations there. And sometimes you would come to this page and you see no costing allocations because the worker doesn't have any current ones. So you don't see a grid on this page. But when you click on view all costing allocations, then you will see all history. And then if you need to modify any one of those expired costing allocations, that's where you work with your filter, bring it on page and modify it. We also have report RPT 013, payroll accounts and costing allocations. And we use this report to view costing allocation for your organization. All right, so I will unshare for a second and then reshare again because I need to switch to a tenant, and we'll see in a moment how it all looks in Workday environment. Okay, let me share back. Okay, so I hope you all see Workday right now. Can someone please confirm that you see the Workday?
Yes, I see it.
Masha.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so we will access a record, and first we'll work through a standalone costing allocation. So I'm going to access Snow White. Last time I was doing James Bond, and then I figured out you have James Bond in the university, and I hope you don't have Snow White. So we have Snow White. Snow White has 2 jobs. One assistant clinical professor, and another one is non-teaching overload. So I will stay on assistant clinical professor here. And obviously I have a lot of access because here I have my implementer access, but your menu is not going to be that long in many cases. All that you, everyone who does costing allocation is going to have pay costing allocations. So what do I see here? First of all, this worker has a costing allocation that is valid right now. This is the case, 12/31/2099, set and forget. If it doesn't change, it will just drift from one fiscal year to another. You won't need to maintain it. So sometimes, let's say, an employee would have more than one because they have multiples and some of them expired. When I click on this view all costing allocations, I will see all of that. And sometimes when you work on those records, that's the best to ensure that you actually see everything that happened for this worker. We have some workers who have a lot already. So I review my costing allocation first. It goes to 12/31/2099, but I need to change it, and I need to actually put my Snow White to 2 use sources. So if I click maintain, that's where I get the window, and a lot of you have seen this window many, many times, right? It always defaults to the primary position, which in my case is what I need. But if I needed another position, these are my current positions, 2. So I need to ensure to select the right one. If that worker would be in a previous position and I need to update that, and you will ask, when do I need to update past position? You have a terminated employee that is supposed to get an earning on payroll, a severance or whatever it is, and you go and update their last cost and allocation. If that was, let's say, contract-based or it was terminal, it wasn't with 12/31/2099, it expired, it doesn't cover your payroll. You will actually see it in past positions. Also in past positions, when it's good, when you work with someone, you set the cost and allocation for a new position, you want to see some history from the previous position, that's where you see it. Current positions, I will stay on my clinical professor. And right now, I don't need to manipulate the filter. She only has one. That one is going to be good for my cost and allocation. That filter is okay. So I click OK and I get to the page. So this is a relatively new layout. Workday recently changed that. We are very thankful because for people with many dates, many ranges, you had to scroll, scroll, and scroll. Now you can see all of them here. The ranges appear on the left side. Existing costing allocation just shows you that same page, same costing that Snow White has. Now we also have proposed costing allocation. So it goes to 12/31/2099. Great. Let's say I'm setting up a new costing allocation. It's going to be effective May 15. First thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to end my current costing allocation. So I'll add it on May 14, 2025. Once I did that, without overriding the dates or modifying the costing allocation, first I park what is not going to be current comes May 15. Then, because I'm going to actually use this U-source in my next costing allocation, and I want to save me some time, I'm going to copy costing allocation, right? Because I'm leveraging that U-source. Why do I need to enter it again? When I click on copy costing allocation, all right, that's exactly what we were talking about. Workday is very impatient. You haven't even done your entry, and Workday already comes up with an error. And when you see that error, you know what it is. Costing allocation interval date ranges must not overlap. So here it comes up with today's date, and that's why it throws that error. But the moment I change it to 5/15, that will go away. Because what I did right now, I lined up my range. I ended it on 5/14, and I started it on 5/15. So if I would start it on 5/16, it gives me an error. But this is not an error. It's actually an Amber Alert. And it says the current override creates a date gap with the prior override. Please be mindful of those errors. Sometimes, if you have an employee who was in a position with a contract and costing allocation ended in November, and then they come back in next February, and you don't really worry about them because that's a new contract in the same position, maybe the gap is okay. But for the majority of our workers, the gap is not okay. And you need to ensure if they are on the payroll, they have to be covered. So I'm going to change it back to 15. All right. End date, I'll just repark it to 12/31/2099. I don't know when it's going to change, but I could know the exact date. Now, when you know the exact date when it's going to end, let's say you are lending a worker to another department for 20% of the time for 2 months. Please do not just end your costing allocation effective June 15 and go away, right? Because your worker is still going to be on the payroll after June 15. And I can bet my life that you might not remember with everything that you need to do to come back and update it come June 15. So if you have someone who's continuously on payroll, something is changing for this person in costing, you know the exact date when it's supposed to end, please project a next future dated costing allocation after that and return them back to the funding that they had. So in this case, I'm just indefinitely changing this costing allocation. That's why I have the date of 12/31/2099. But it's not going to be 100% on this U source. So what I need to do, I change it to 80%. And when I change my distribution percent first, and then I add a record, the system is smart enough to pad it to 20%. So when you update the percentage and add the new record, that's how it's going to calculate it and tally it to 100%. So right now we're at 100%. All right, let's see. I'm going to enter some other use source. So let me just choose another one. Okay. So I selected my next use source and everything here just lined up. I'm not supposed to change any of these values. Whatever got into your related additional work tags, you just keep with that. That's it. So your record is now completed. Let me show you something. If I was actually doing costing allocation effective today, and let's say I would do it on 04/22, I would end my previous one, and then I would create my next one with today's date. Okay. So it looks good, right? When I'm going to submit that, the system actually didn't ask me that today is April 23, and usually it gives that warning message. So I will need to go investigate why it didn't appear. But usually we have the warning message that appears if this is today's date. Maybe it's because I changed those dates a couple of times back and forth, but it usually will tell you you are trying to submit this costing allocation effective today. Then you can see details and process. So in my case right now, because I'm an implementer, this costing allocation just submits and I'm done. If I was a costing specialist, it would go, in some cases it goes for approval, in some other cases it does not. You can always see that if you go back to your archive, you can always see in your archive the status of a costing allocation that you submitted. So if you wait for someone to approve and you actually want them to do it before the payroll and you monitor that, if you get to this record and you archive, it will show you dynamically what happens with the record. So if you had two approvers, for example, one approved and another has not, or it's still sitting with your first approver, you will be able to see that the costing allocation is still in progress. So everything that is in your archive, it's there and it's changing status dynamically when you look at this, when you select it next time. Okay, so that was a standalone costing allocation when you actually came to the record to only change costing and it's not related to any HR process.
Hey, Masha.
Yeah,
Masha, can I ask you a question?
sure.
In your last example, you ended current on May 14th, and then you copied existing to use it effective May 15th. What if you don't want to copy existing? Then what do you do if you're going to start something brand new without using existing?
That's perfect. Let's do it right now. So let's go back to Snow White and do another costing allocation
Okay.
for Snow White. So Snow White, I get to pay costing allocations, right? I look at my costing allocation. One is effective today. This is the one that I want to end. Actually, I have some thoughts to end it effective June 1st. Okay, so let's say, let me end it May 31st, 2025. And then I know that I'm going to allocate this employee to something completely different. None of the two resources that are currently here. Let's say I want to do a grant or anything like that. Then I don't use copy because I don't leverage anything. Why do I want to have these details that not needed? I will click add. And of course, it throws an error right away because it created another costing allocation with today's date and it already sees one here. So now I'm changing my date to June 1st and the error will go away. Now I have my future dated costing allocation. And this one doesn't have anything. It's just clean. There is nothing in
Perfect.
it. And that's where you would enter it and do everything that you need to do here.
Perfect.
And one more time around the filter. So right now, what do we see here? Only one cost in allocation for April 23rd and until, 2099. If I click on view all, it's going to show me both. One that was there from 2020 and one that is here now. So let's say if I wanted to work on both of those costs and allocations, and I click on maintain, and instead of 423, I'll just say April 1st, right? I could say April 22nd too, doesn't matter. And then I click OK. Then what happens on the next page? Both of those costs and allocations are now here. They are both available for me to edit or review if I need, right? I can bring them all here. What I suggest, if you just update one, you don't need to bring all of them here. But if you update more than one, for example, or line up your future dated cost and allocation, change a couple, then manipulate your filter and it will bring it up. Okay, we'll cancel out of here. And I'll start proxy as Brittany Dolan because I want to pick up an HR process that she has ready for custom allocation and to show you there what happens. So I can only proxy as someone in non-production environment. No one can proxy as you in production and come proxying as you and do something on your behalf. It's just in non-production environment. So I will pick up, I'll proxy as Brittany. And when I go to Brittany's actions, I actually have custom allocation for data change, teddy bear. Okay, let's see what teddy bear has there. So let me pop it up. All right, so this is the screen where everything happens. That is the screen that you will see more often, the standalone screen, because you are getting those requests as part of your change job, add job, additional job, all of that. What do? Custom allocation level. First of all, if I select worker position and earning, let's see, if I select, for example, salary, 12. Nothing shows up because this worker doesn't have worker position and earning cost and allocation. So sometimes this is one of the mistakes. People start doing earning level, they don't see previous cost and allocation, they issue incorrect cost and allocation. This is not what you need. What you want is to put worker in position. And the moment you put worker in position in, if that would be a brand new position, let's say teddy bear just transferred to a new position, you would not see any cost and allocation here because they don't have any. But in this case, you actually see what they have. They have current record. Teddy bear works in accounting. So what do you do here? Let's say you are doing this change, job change. It's effective May 4th. You're looking at this cost and allocation. You're like, okay, that is still valid. They're still in this U-source accounting. Let me look at the dates. Oh yeah, 12/31/2099. Do you need to do anything here? Absolutely not. All you do is click submit and you're done because nothing changes. But what I see people do, they actually start, okay, why don't I override the date? And they change the date to 5/04/2025. Okay, and they submit it. What have we done? We just erased everything that this worker had. We erased the history, we erased current cost and allocation. Somewhere the payroll is going to go into the error because now you actually, you see, that's all they have because you overrode the dates and you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. The date was absolutely perfect. You didn't need to do anything. Now, let me just cancel out of here for a second and go back into that. And I think it will go away right now. Yeah, no, it's still here. costing allocation for data change. So let me go back into that. So let me do it again. Worker position, I selected my correct level. I got back to August 07, 2016, 12/31, 2099. I'm like, no, they're actually changing. Now they have different costing allocation. Step one, what I do, if I want 0504 to be my next effective date, then this one should end on 05/03, 2025. So I ended my costing allocation, and I don't want to copy because I'm not leveraging this U source. Let me add. And when I add this, unlike the standalone that always comes with today's date, this page is actually intelligent enough to read that you want to have this 0504 because this is your effective date here on your event, and it will align your next costing allocation to your event. And all you need to do 504, yeah, it's good. I don't know when it's going to end, so I'll plug in 2099. And now you have continuous coverage, starting from wherever he was converted. 2016 is basically just conversion date. It doesn't mean that that allocation was active for last 10 years. 503, he's ending that. 504, he's having a new custom allocation again to 12/31, 2099. Then all I need to do is to pick up my next U source. And pick up something that looks okay. I'll just do this, but not necessarily. That's what I need to put here. So I picked up my U source, all my additional work tags defaulted to the page, and all I need to do right now is just submit and it will go away. That's it, you're done. No issues, no problems. Your continuous coverage is here. You didn't remove the history. You're not going to get any emails saying, why did you do this, right? We don't need to work on the weekend. Everyone is happy. So that's what we want to have is clear, accurate data. Everyone is covered for payroll. And the most important for us, it's you knowing why you are doing this. Not being, concerned about errors, warnings. You know why you're on this page, what you're doing. Okay. Remember one thing, once you hit submit here, if you realize that you are on the wrong level, even if there is a alert or error, you won't be able to change back to the right level. So you will need to cancel, ask system administrator to cancel this costing allocation. And let's say, actually, this is a good example. Let's say I submitted costing allocation here. Then I realize, oh, this is the wrong one. I did the wrong thing. I added the wrong U source. This event already escaped from me. I will not be able to redo this event because this is attached to HR job change. What I can do, I can reach out to my approver and ask them to deny it or send it back. Or if I figured out I did the wrong level, I selected salary 1212, but I shouldn't have, I will ask my approver to deny it. And then all I need to do is go back to the teddy bear record, pick up his standalone custom allocation, just like we did with Snow White, and change it there. It's the same functionality, but you just access it through different channels. That's all there is. So if you need to correct something, you can always access employee profile and do that. But remember, once you have a custom allocation that is in progress, you won't be able to create or change custom allocation at the same level. So if I have a custom allocation for teddy bear sitting with the approver, I won't be able to go and do something for his worker and position, because if I try, it will show me the previous one that is still going to be approved. And I think this concludes our demonstration today. So let me just get back to the deck momentarily. All right. So we do have related resources We have excellent job aid, assigned cost and allocation. We also have some other job aids available there. There's one on payroll accounts and adjustment. We're going to do a session next week on payroll accounts and adjustment. So if you would like to attend that one, just look out for an invite. We're going to send an invite, and I think it's next Wednesday around the same time. So we're going to work through that. And where to go for help? So we have support, UMD-EDU. That's where there is a resource hub, learning hubs with information, training, job aids. And if you feel that you did something that you cannot fix on your own, you can submit a case and seek help with other teams. Now, our next actions, we have all these questions and answers that we have in chat. We're going to resend to everyone who was attending this meeting so that you will be able to see those questions and answers. If anyone has a question right now that I can answer, let me check the chat. I think Jeff already answered all of those. Thank you so much.
Way ahead of you, Masha.
I know, aren't you
Right?
always?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So one of the I actually see that very good one where Kelsey is asking if the action has already been approved and can be rescinded at our level. What's next? Right. Contact us. We'll help you with that. We'll help you to rescind something that has been completed or cancel something that is mid-process, has not been fully approved and hasn't landed yet. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for attending. You have a wonderful day. And we're looking forward to seeing you in our next session on payroll accounts and adjustments.
Masha, we have one more question.
Yeah.
What area do we submit tickets to for costing allocations? That should be through payroll. It's going to get your quickest and best response.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. All right. Okay, thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too. Thank you, Masha.
Take care.